Morning, guys. So I wanted to make a little video on how to do this. There's not very many videos on this. This is kind of a long, tedious process, and there's not really, I couldn't really find anything to do it, so I had to do a little bit of trial and error, and I found this to be the best way to figure out how much shim you actually need to put into an rb26 cylinder head. Now, there's a couple different ways I've watched that you can do it. You can do each valve individually, and if you do each valve individually, you don't have to bolt down the cam from a couple other videos I've saw, but I haven't tried that yet. I just went ahead and bolted down the cam. That way I don't want any fluctuation of the cam to interfere with the measurements that I'm going to be getting. But basically, underneath here is a cam bucket, and it has different thickness of shims, which I've mic'd all mine out and kind of labeled them which sizes, so I can put the correct one in if I have it. Now, what you also want to do is draw you some sort of map of where the shims go. I'm going to do mine this way. Everybody can do theirs differently, but the best way I found to do this is go to your cam sheet, or whatever cam that you're putting inside the head, and find out what the thickness has to be on that side. So this one has to be, I don't know if you can see that, maybe a little closer, 0.30 millimeters. So what I did was I grabbed my 0.30 millimeter filler gauge and I went ahead and slid it in. Now, here's the fun part. In order to find the gap, see, this slides way too easily. Nissan, according to the manual, says to slide another feeler gauge in on the other side. So leave your expected gap that you're supposed to have on underneath the base of the circle of the cam lobe, and then start with a 1 millimeter increase. Did it get better or worse? Well, it's going to get better because you're closing that gap. But then, if it's still too much of a gap, you can step up to the 2 millimeter increase. And then from there, 3, 4, 5, however much it takes to get the proper distance between your cam and the feeler gauge. Now, this one's about right where it needs to be. So I know that I need to add, according to this gauge, a 0.25 millimeter increase. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write that one down. So later, after I wrote it down, I can take this cam shaft back out and go specifically to this lobe and mic it out what size I have, and then see if I have a 0.25 millimeter one laying around, and I can get the actual size that's underneath the bucket. Now, this is going to save you a lot of time. It took me a little bit to figure it out. I did a lot of trial and error. I kept trying to do individual shims, which was creating a lot of confusion in the numbers. I was like, okay, what was this supposed to be? This is supposed to be 0.30 millimeters. Okay, what am I at now? This is a 0.5. Okay, do a lot of math. You know, figure out how much did I increase, how much did I decrease. Where this way gives you the opportunity to see exactly how much distance you've put into it, or how much clearance you had to take out. So 0.25 millimeters. I know exactly how much bigger I need to go, and I don't have to do a whole bunch of math. Yes, you can do the math if you want to. That's a perfectly acceptable way, but I found this to be the easiest, as well as the manual says to, the actual Nissan manual says to do it this way, which I wanted to make a video on how to do this. So that way, if you're installing aftermarket camshafts, you can make sure it is shimmed correctly, because if it is not, then you're going to have some serious ticking in the head, as well as you're not going to gain as much lift as the cam profile that you bought is designed for. Secondly, it can cause a lot of issues with shims popping. If you have too much clearance, you'll pop the shims out of the bucket, etc. So I wanted to make a video of this because I could not find any on YouTube on how to do this. And once you just go on down through your line here, see, I can't get 2 millimeters in this one. If I can, it's going to be pretty stiff. So yeah, that's too much shim for that one. Step it down. See, I got a 2 millimeter, not a 0.25, sorry. Got a 2 millimeter in there, so that one, yeah, I'll write that down. But yeah, I wanted to make a little informative video on how to do this. Now, make sure when you go to remove these camshafts, you do a little bit by little bit. Start from the outsides and work your way to the center, and just back it off a little bit, because if you don't, and you just go straight across and there's a lot of tension on this side, it can possibly snap your camshaft, and you don't want to do that, because some of these camshafts are fairly expensive, $800 or whatever, depending on what you're doing. But yes, keep that in mind. Don't snap your camshafts. You'll be having a bad day. Also be aware, anything over 9.3 millimeters of lift, you need to clearance the cam buckets to allow the lobe to swing around, and that requires a little bit of machine work or do-it-yourselfers. Be very careful, keep your work area clean, and so forth. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I just kind of wanted to share that information with you on my little vlog of repairing my Nissan Skyline GTR. So hopefully this helps some of you guys. Hopefully it was informative and let you guys know how to do this right. That way you're not sitting there guessing. Let me know if you need anything else.